Fight fans, it's time for Boxing Scene's top stories only on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I am George D. Metellus, joined by the champs. We got Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algieri here on Top Stories. Well, we are coming off an expensive $80 pay-per-view with the card featuring Terence Crawford and Israel Madrimov. And every month coming up toward the end of the year, we have a pretty packed schedule when it comes to pay-per-views that might be expensive as well. Chris, are we getting to the point where we're getting pay-per-view fatigue with how much money people are going to have to shell out for these big fights?
Yeah, I mean, boxing has always been kind of like a poor man's sport. You didn't need much. The barrier to entry was very, very low. But the barrier to entry for being a fan is actually very high. Not only do we have these pay-per-views, which are turning out to be monthly now, which are looking $80 to $100, upwards of $100, but we're also have subscription-based. So we're paying monthly or yearly for an actual subscription, and then on top of that, you're having these pay-per-views. And at least, we're getting the fights that we want, but I believe there's a better way, because it's going to be really difficult to build a fan base for these fighters if there's a paywall. You're not going to be able to be a household name, which is what everyone's looking for. This is why Crawford, one of the reasons why Crawford isn't as big of a star as he should be, because there's a paywall blocking his fights. Guys like on the undercard who are coming up, an Andy Cruz, a David Morrell, people aren't buying pay-per-views to see them fight, so they might not actually get to see those guys. Obviously, you're paying for the main event. You might catch those guys, maybe not. So it's very difficult to make boxing a household. Make household names from the sport, making super stars for the future because of that. And we're making a niche sport even more niche by putting up such a paywall. And I think that I don't know what the solution would be, but maybe splitting the cards up so maybe they're not quite as long, have it more on the free side or at least on the subscription base, and then for the last couple of fights making that the pay-per-view. Something needs to change because it's going to become very, very difficult for fans to stay on top of these pay-per-view events and help follow along their future boxing stars.
Yeah, Paulie, what do you make of the pay-per-view fatigue that fans might be experiencing?
Yeah, it's I can kind of understand it and relate to it, right? Because if you make pay-per-view every single month, sometimes multiple pay-per-views a month, you're gonna first of all, boxing is gonna be cannibalizing itself. I mean, people aren't gonna be able to afford all these fights. Not to mention that you also are in a time of economic kind of crisis for a lot of people. So it makes it more difficult to sell these pay-per-views. And if you look at the numbers really of pay-per-view sales, even over the past weekend, I think the official number was something around 200,000 maybe, give or take. So the numbers are going to reflect in and of themselves. You're going to wind up having more and more people steal it, less and less people are going to be apt to buy it. I can remember when I was younger, the pay-per-view was $50. They were good pay-per-views. Now they're $100, and before the Turkey Al Sheikh pay-per-views, they were pretty pitiful, most of them. So people want to get bang for their buck. They also don't want to get banged over the head for their buck, and that's what's sort of happening with this pay-per-view overload. Some fights are understandable to be pay-per-view, but if you remember back in the day, pay-per-view was probably star versus star. They would build up together. It wasn't a star against whoever he fought, and if you wanted to fight the Uber driver, that was also on pay-per-view, because in order to see that fighter, you had to get him on pay-per-view. That wasn't the case back in the day. Mike Tyson was a pay-per-view megastar in the late 80s. But when he fought Buster Douglas, it was on regular HBO, because Buster Douglas on paper didn't fit the criteria of a pay-per-view opponent. Today, they'll never make the pay-per-view matchups, or very rarely, before Turkey Al Sheikh. This is Turkey Al Sheikh aside, because now he's making some great matchups. But you like I said, not long ago, you had Gervonta Davis against Garcia, that 130-pounder, I forget his first name,
Hector Luis
on pay-per-view. So you've got a situation where you're just putting guys on pay-per-view for the sake of putting it on pay-per-view, and then now these pay-per-views are becoming more and more redundant because you're also overpaying some of these guys, and in order to make the pay grade, you got to start charging people. You got to be careful, man, because you can kind of bring the market to blow itself up.
Yeah, that's certainly going to be very interesting. I remember when I was a kid, it was on free TV. I mean, Ali, one of the reasons he became famous because you could watch his fights for free on ABC. We'll see if this pay-per-view model is sustainable over the next couple of years. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We always appreciate you here on Top Stories. Don't forget to scan the QR code to go to ProBoxTV.com and like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on all social media platforms as well. I'm George D. Metellus. This is Boxing Scene's Top Stories.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday night fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, August 21st. Former Unified World Champion Swift Jarrett Hurd takes on former Unified World Champion Jason Banana Rosario.
Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at ProBoxTV.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.